gentlemen, welcome to Lunchbox Fight Talk, episode 1.5. This is going to be a shorter episode, just me, Joe, right now doing this. Partner in crime, Carlos, is doing some other things today, but I thought I'd come on here and at least talk about all the happenings this past week with the UFC. It looks like last Tuesday we got a tweet from Conor McGregor saying that he was going to retire. He's like, said, thanks for the cheese, catches later, retiring young. Um, then shortly after that, Dana White and the UFC pull him from the UFC 200 main event card. Then the next day, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, Conor McGregor tweets, has an announcement, puts out a heartfelt announcement talking about how he was training different for the fight and he really want to put more time into training instead of doing the promo because the promo takes so much time of these fighters and they don't even get compensated for the promotion. Um, and I understand where he's coming from because he lost to Nate Diaz and and they both like a 2 weeks notice, even though Conor McGregor was already in a training camp and Diaz was not. He's going to fight a Nate Diaz with a full training camp. So Conor is going to have to train specifically for Diaz because Diaz, was a totally different style type of fighter than like your RDA. So I get where he was going, and he's got to change his training up a little bit. He's got to train in some other areas if you're going to fight somebody like Nate Diaz. I mean, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Dude's a master. You don't go to the ground with somebody like that if you don't have any ground skills or your ground skills aren't up to par. You go to ground with Nate Diaz and you're nowhere near his level. I mean, you don't have to be on his level to go to the ground with him, but if you're nowhere near his level like Conor isn't, you're running the risk of getting submitted. And Conor's been submitted before, so it's not really shocking. I mean, I understand what he wanted to do. What I didn't like was the way the UFC just jumped the gun right away and pulled him from the card. Okay, you guys couldn't have worked something out. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I've heard over the past week there were a bunch of requests from McGregor's camp. The UFC refused all those requests at the UFC 200 press conference last Friday prior to the weigh-ins for UFC 197. Dana refused to answer a lot of questions about it, and he kept saying that it wasn't fair to the other fighters. They came from other parts of the world to do the promo, and I think Ariel Helwani had asked him a question. I can't remember exactly what the question was now, but he asked him a question, and basically Dana's like, no comment. I think he was asking him if the fight could still happen, if maybe if there's a way to work it out, and no comment. So I don't like the way how they're kind of dodging that. Some of the fighters came out against McGregor. Some fighters came out for McGregor, like Rory McDonald, saying, we need to back each other. We need to support each other. I'm thinking the fighters need some type of union, like a fighters association slash, like a players association that's in Major League Baseball and the NFL and the NBA. Only problem is I don't really see that happening for a long time because you need more than just one fighter, one star to step up. You need all your stars to step up. You need John Jones to say yes, step into it. McGregor, Ronda Rousey, fighters like that come together and refuse to fight and, refuse to do the promotion to get a union like that because boxing doesn't even have that. Um, like Dana White said, these guys are independent contractors, which is almost impossible to get a union if you're considered an independent contractor, but they treat them like employees. So to me, I see both sides, really. I mean, but in the end, I'm going to support the fighter over the promotion. It doesn't matter if it's UFC, Bellator, 1FC, whoever. It doesn't matter. If it was Pride, it doesn't matter. I'm supporting the fighter because the fighter is what I'm there to watch. I'm not there for the promotion. If McGregor and Diaz fought in Bellator, I'd watch Bellator. I don't care. I'm there to see the fight, not the promotion. UFC just seems to be the biggest promotion right now. And what they really have to watch out for is they don't pull a total WWE type thing and end up cornering the market and not having any real competition, which is why I'm glad Bellator's still around, even though they had that god awful card with Shamrock and Gracie and Kimbo and Data 5000. Oh my, that was so terrible. But I did watch the one this past Friday with Benson Henderson and Kozlovsky or whatever, the Russian guy. I cannot remember his name. Um, and that guy dominated Benson Henderson, which I think opened a lot of eyes. But that caused me to research the Russian fighter. Found out his only loss is from Ben Askren, so I go and watch that fight. And I've had people tell me about Ben Askren, but I haven't really caught his fights before because when I kind of got stuck into UFC for a while. I mean, I did watch Strike Force and stuff like that when it was on, and some WEC stuff when it was on, and then so you kind of get sucked into UFC because it's the big, like the big time. It's there. It's where all the your highlighted superstar fighters are. It's where all the media attention's at. They're the one that's on pay per view. Bellator's on free TV like Spike. But then I go and watch Ben Askren. That dude is a beast. I don't care who you get. People, I see people tweeting, "Oh, this is how real fighters, fight." No, if you're a true MMA fan, you respect the entirety of the game. You respect the striking. You respect the ground game, the wrestling, the submission, the clinch, all aspects of the game. And watching his fights and watching how he dominated that Russian guy. Uh, I mean, that was just insane how he dominated him. I mean, you're looking at total domination. I think the strikes were like 268 to 1 or something like that. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Only guy to finish, let's see, Krishkov. Only guy to ever finish him and beat him, Ben Askren, welterweight. And if you go to his Twitter at Ben Askren, he says his one in his description, best damn welterweight on the planet. 100% agree. 100% agree. And to me, I know a lot of people are finally getting on the hype train for Demetrius Johnson, who just won his fight at UFC 97. Soundly dominated Henry Cejudo or Cejudo, that's his name, Cejudo. Dominated him and finished him TKO knees first round. First round. So, yes, I see Demetrius Johnson as right up there, number one, pound for pound, right, with John Jones. But on my list, not the UFC's list, my personal list, at that top spot is also Ben Askren. I would love to see him in the UFC. I think he would tear through the welterweight division like nobody's business. You imagine seeing him and George St. Pierre? Go look at Ben Askren. He's not a ripped guy. He's not, a scary looking dude. He's like your average looking guy walking on the street. But his wrestling is top notch, man. Top notch. 2001 amateur wrestling. He beat Chris Weidman 17-3 in an amateur wrestling match. Chris Weidman, who is one of the best wrestlers in the UFC, hands down, period. Imagine Ben Askren in the UFC. I'm telling you right now, if you don't know him, and if you don't like him, you gotta respect the guy. The guy is an awesome fighter. He's great at what he does. So let him do what he does. It's not like he's not active. He takes you to the ground. He's throwing punches the entire time. I mean, it's not like he's not doing anything. So he's a great fighter. So we get through the Conor McGregor stuff. UFC 197 goes down. Had some great fights on there. Pettis got leg kicked to death by Edson Barbosa. Edson Barbosa gives Pettis his third straight loss. I think Pettis falls out of the top 10 now. I think Edson Barbosa jumps up. So I think he would be next in line for a lightweight title shot. You got Demetrius Johnson dominating Henry Cejudo. So now all I can see left for Demetrius Johnson, he's cleared out that division. He's if Dominic Cruz beats Uriah Faber, which I don't think he will, but if he does, then I'm saying you got to give Demetrius Johnson Dominic Cruz. If not, maybe give him Uriah Faber. Let's see, let's get a super fight there. John Jones defeats Daniel Cormier. Okay, I mean not Daniel Cormier. Sorry, Ovince St. Preux gets the interim title. Now they just announced that a UFC 200 main event is now going to be Daniel Cormier versus John Jones 2 for the light heavyweight title. Finally, we get a main event. Finally. Yeah, so the main event now for UFC 200, Daniel Cormier, John Jones 2, light heavyweight championship. So they give us our main event, which I wasn't sure if it was going to happen or not. And now we're looking maybe getting Conor McGregor sometime later in the summer, maybe UFC 201, 202. I thought maybe they would do a John Jones fight in New York, but now they're going to do a UFC 200. So if John Jones wins that, if he's open later in the year for the Madison Square Garden card, who does he fight? That's a good question. I say Anthony Roble Johnson. If he goes through Daniel Cormier, regardless of who wins, John Jones, Daniel Cormier, I want Anthony Rumble Johnson in that fight, no matter who it is, for the light heavyweight title. Now, when Conor comes back, who's Conor going to fight? I heard that he was going to fight the winner of Edgar Aldo. Do you want to do that fight at UFC 201, 202? You can't, because they're fighting at 200. So what that tells me is he's probably going to fight Nate Diaz again if he fights at 201 or 202. Then you could put him on the card with the winner of Edgar and Aldo at maybe Madison Square Garden or a New York card. Now, when it comes to that fight, that's going to be an interesting fight now. Because is Conor going to come back to featherweight? And if he doesn't, is Aldo going to be the champion again? Is Edgar going to be the champion? Can't wait to see. And then I saw this crazy tweet that nobody really talked about, but it's not announced and it's not official on BJ Penn's official website. He's put on there BJ Penn versus GSP3 UFC 200. I'm like, that's not happening. It's not going to happen. So that was just kind of craziness there. I'm like, really, BJ? You want to add to the craziness that's already going on, bud? Really? But the one we got coming up here, UFC 198. I'm ecstatic about this card. It is a great card. First off, you have, Anderson Silva versus Uriah Hall, which is going to be insane. People don't realize how good Uriah Hall is. This guy is like a young Anderson Silva, the way he fights. So that fight's going to be epic. Is Silva going to win? If he does, he's got to be back in title contention, or up there. Maybe he fights the loser of Rockhold Weidman, which I wouldn't mind seeing Silva and Weidman go at it again. And I would love to see Silva fight Rockhold. All right, you also have the UFC debut of Chris Cyborg versus Leslie Smith, I believe. Yep. And that's going to be a great fight. I think Cyborg dominates her, though, just because she's Cyborg, and I want to see more of Cyborg in the UFC. I really do. You have Shogun fighting Corey Anderson. Another great fight. I think Corey Anderson pulls this out. You got an aging Shogun. If Shogun wins it, he could, put that spark back in his career. But Corey Anderson's up and coming. Pretty good fighter. You got that. And then you got Damian Maia versus Matt Brown. Damian Maia is unreal on the ground. Probably one of the, if not the best, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter in the UFC, let alone though he is in the welterweight division. Now, if Matt Brown pulls that out, would that throw Matt Brown into title contention? I think so. Whoever wins this fight is probably going to be up there in title contention. Then you have Belfort and Souza, Jacare. So I know whoever wins that fight is probably going to get the next UFC middleweight title shot. And then I think the winner of Silva Hall should get the next fight. Their next fight should be against the loser of Weidman Rockhold, and the winner of Weidman Rockhold is going to get either Souza or Belfort. I would like to see a rematch of Rockhold Souza, but also a rematch of Rockhold Belfort. I really don't want to see a Belfort Weidman fight again, but I would like to see a Souza Weidman fight because Weidman don't want to take Jacare to the ground. He will submit him in a heartbeat. Then you got the main event: Verdum versus Miocic. Stipe Miocic. I think he's being, he's the underdog definitely, but I think he's being underestimated here. I think this guy could finish Verdum. Now, if Verdum pulls this out, regardless, I hear Fedor is getting close to coming to an agreement with UFC. Would they let Fedor jump right into an immediate title shot, or would they make him have one or two fights prior? If not, the heavyweight division's open, man. You got Overeem, you got Andre Arlovsky fighting coming up. I think this Saturday, actually. I have to check and see. Let's see. No, May 8th. Sunday, May 8th, they're going to be fighting. Which I think the winner of that fight could get a title shot next. And then you got JDS, Junior Dos Santos, defeating Ben Rothwell. He's up there too. I mean, you got some amazing stuff coming up. And then at UFC 200, you got Travis Brown and Cain Velasquez. There's another one. Brown pulls it out. He's right up there for that title shot, man. I mean, this is getting kind of crazy. It's mixing up. But here is the big one: the Stephen Thompson Rory McDonald fight. I think that is the last fight on Rory McDonald's contract with the UFC. I heard Bellator is showing heavy interest in Rory McDonald. Rory McDonald would be a huge free agent. If Bellator picked him up, he would probably come right in and get a title shot right away, just like Benson Henderson did. But Rory, I think, would win. He's a better technical fighter than Benson Henderson, and he's a true welterweight, where Benson is more of a lightweight. So I would love to see that fight, but on the other hand, I don't want to see Rory leave the UFC either, because I believe he's up there number one. I mean, he's up there. You got, Lawler the champ, you got Rory, you got Tyron Woodley and Stephen Thompson all on the top right there. Love to see any one of those guys fight each other. I think if Stephen Thompson beats Rory, which I don't know if he will. Rory's pretty good fighter, more technical. He's got an all-around type game, not just a striker. He's got everything there. He trained with George St. Pierre for all those years, man. So he's kind of like he's still young, really young. I'm gonna pull up some information on Rory here real quick, and I want to say he's like 25. I'm not real sure, but I think he is. Um, he is 26 years old. 26. 18 and 3. 26. Just think about that for a second. This guy has another good 10 years in him, most likely. Maybe more. Maybe more. 26. 18 and 3. Two of those losses are to Robbie Lawler. Think about that. So, Stephen Thompson wins. I think a Robbie Lawler fight would be amazing because they're just going to stand up and throw. Um, Tyron Woodley, Robbie Lawler. I was hoping that would make its way to UFC 200. Them guys are going to stand there and throw. That would be a good fight. So all these possibilities are open, and I'm wanting to see where this Conor McGregor UFC thing's going to go. I want to see who he's going to fight next. Who are they going to give him? We don't know. I'm thinking it's still going to be Nate Diaz, but we don't know for sure. I mean, that's up and coming. We just have to wait and see what they tell us. Um, I really want to, like I said earlier, I want to see Ben Askren. Man, if you throw him in that welterweight mix, it would be unbelievable. But I've watched some interviews of Ben Askren. I don't think he'll ever go to the UFC. It seems like they kind of when they were going through contract negotiations before, they kind of tossed some things in. He didn't like what they did. He don't really trust them. I don't know if I ever see that happening. That would be, it would be amazing. I just don't think we'll see it happen, which is sad and disappointing for the fans because we won't ever get to see these great fights that could happen with Ben Askren. So we just gotta wait and kind of bide our time. You got some great cards coming up, and then after you peak at UFC 200, think about even better, man. Two New York cards. Conor McGregor's still there to fight. Um, it's just so many possibilities there. So many possibilities. Misha Tate versus Amanda Nunes at UFC 200. Misha pulls it out. Will she fight Holly Holm again? Will Holly Holm fight before um, she gets a title shot again? Will she fight somebody else? I would like to see a Kat Zingano and Holly Holm. You got Zingano is going to be fighting Juliana Pena, who's kind of like a Misha Tate understudy type deal. So we'll see. Um, will Kat Zingano, if she wins, get a title shot? Will Ronda come back? We don't know. There's so many open options with everything, which is, as an MMA fan, makes everything terrific. Makes it great because you got so many fights you could see, so many fights you want to see. So all we got to do is just wait. I mean, I'm hoping Jones gets past Cormier and we get that Rumble fight that everybody's been clamoring for. And I'm hoping, Silva takes out Uriah Hall. Not unanimous decision. I want him to finish him. I want a knockout submission, something. TKO, it doesn't matter. I want to finish. I want to see Silva fight Rockholder Weidman. I want to see Souza fight Weidman. I want to see, you know, Verdum if he wins. I want to see him fight Fedor again. I would love to, there's so many options. Fedor comes over. He got all, and the heavyweight division is so open. Fedor could easily come in and dominate. It could happen. Yeah, he's lost a few fights. He's lost a few fights lately. Dan Henderson, being the most notable one. And he lost to Verdum before. You don't think Fedor wants revenge on that loss? Of course he does. Would he get it? He could. Anybody can get beat. Anybody. It doesn't matter who you are. It's just so open. The only thing that would make the heavyweight division even greater is if Brock Lesnar decided to come back and throw him into the mix of all these heavyweight fighters. Stipe Miocic versus Brock Lesnar. Stipe Miocic versus Fedor. Think of that. Think of them guys throwing hands, man. Throwing some leather in there. I can't wait. I really can't. So that's the catch up here after this crazy week last week with the UFC and everything going down. Like I said, I'm going to support the fighter, whether if it's McGregor, Aldo. It doesn't matter who it is. If they refuse to do the promo because of training, I'm on that fighter's side, man. I'm with them. I don't care. If it's a fighter I don't really like, I'm supporting them. I support the fighter over the promotion 100% always. And I just want to thank everybody for listening. This is just like I said, a quick go through of covering some stuff. I appreciate everybody's support. Like I said, check us out on Twitter at Lunchbox Fight. I think it's at Lunchbox Fight. The link's on the YouTube channel art. You can catch it there. Hopefully we'll be back with a full podcast here in a couple of weeks, maybe before UFC 198. And then we'll cover, like I said, some dream fights, hopefully, in that podcast as well. But I want to appreciate your support, appreciate you listening, and everybody have a wonderful day. Peace. We get a main event. Finally.